That's right. Stop the stigmas, we just heard. And I agree. Tony, at first I was a little uncomfortable with the applause because I'm thinking, why are we applauding about mental health? But you raised a really interesting point, that we are really here to celebrate and have a conversation that most people don't.
We're breaking
the silence. I get the applause now.
That's why we're applauding.
Breaking the silence.
And the applause is to support all this.
Exactly.
To support this effort.
It really is just to support all of us today. As you've just heard, mental health is an issue. It concerns all of us. Nearly 48 million, listen to that number, 48 million U.S. adults experienced a mental illness in 2018 alone. Mental health disorders are real medical conditions. Just like cancer or diabetes, they can change a person's emotions, your thinking, your behavior, and are caused by a variety of factors, including genetics, lifestyle, and certainly the environment.
Yet misunderstandings about mental health disorders are still common. A new CBS News poll finds 51% of Americans think there's a lot of discrimination and stigma against people living with mental illness. An additional 35% believe there is some.
And those numbers are too high. In preparing this special, we've consulted with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the American Psychiatric Association, and a brain research group known as One Mind, all of them for editorial guidance. We did not do this alone. And we'll hear from some of their leading experts throughout our show. And while this is only 1 hour and it will only scratch the surface of topics surrounding mental health, CBS This Morning and all of us are committed to continued coverage of this important issue. Our mission this morning is clear and it is simple. It is time to stop the stigma.
Queer Eye star, that's Karamo, is one person trying to do exactly that. He's on the hit show that he's known for helping other people work through their own emotions.
You do need support from other people. I think you would feel so supported if people just knew that, no, it's not that I'm shutting off. I'm just trying to get myself together.
Yep. Might be time to talk to them.
That's the key thing. You're not alone in this.
It's a team thing.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Give me a hug, man.
But it's Karamo's own experience with severe depression, anxiety, and drug addiction that's helped him become an advocate for mental health. Karamo, we thank you for joining us.
Of course, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
We're excited to have you here because you were telling me that this happened back in high school. You started having very dark feelings. What did that feel like? What did that look like to you?
You know, for me, it was waking up and feeling like the sun just wasn't shining as bright as the day before. And it kept getting darker each day, and yet I couldn't understand why. And I was sharing with you backstage, I went to my parents not understanding and having the language.
Like, what's happening to me?
Yeah, what's going on with me? And my mother and father were just like, pray it away. Yeah. Pray, you know, God will help you. And I do believe there's a space for prayer, but I also believe that there's also a space for finding help right here. But what do you do when you can't find that help?
This started as far back as high school. At its worst, what did it feel like?
It felt like I can't get out of bed, as if I was alone, as if things were not going to get better, as if like the smallest task felt overwhelming and as if I had a large weight on my shoulder. And that just progressively got worse and worse and worse.
And what was that turning point like? Because really this show is about those turning points where you said, I need help, or someone came to you and said, we can help you.
Yeah, for me, it was at the point of realizing that I needed to live a better life. I wanted to have a better life. And it was really seeing people in spaces like this, which is why I applaud everyone in this audience, where I said, you know what? If they're trying to be better, maybe I can be better too. And so I just started to try to find the help, educate myself, find support systems, and that was the first step.
But you said you didn't even know you could get help. You didn't even think that that was an option to you.
Oh, no. Yeah, not at all. I thought that mental health support was for rich people. You know, I didn't grow up wealthy.
You said rich white people.
Rich white people, to be very honest with you. You know, because watching television, I saw only rich white girls going to rehab and getting support. It's what I thought, you know, anyone who looked like me, I never saw them seeking mental health support or talking about their mental health.
Let's get a question from our audience.
Sure.
Remy is 24 years old. She struggled to talk with her family members about her experience with eating disorder and addiction. Remy, what's your question?
Hi, Karamo. My question is, what tips do you have for those who are struggling with mental health that come from cultural backgrounds that don't typically encourage speaking out about it?
First of all, I want to just applaud you for being so open about your struggle. Thank you so much. That's really great. I think one of the main things is that we have to remember communities of colors or people of immigrants, they sometimes don't have the information. There's a lack of information. There's also a lack of access to health care. And so we have to understand all those factors play into why they're not talking about mental health and why it's not important to them in a sense. And so giving them the education that they need is really key in steps. So for you, getting to a place where you feel comfortable, it's about educating them to let them know that the same way if I had a physical wound, mom and dad, you would want me to tend to that every single day. Let them know the physical wound is in my mind or in my heart. And that's a way to help them to understand that.
And needs just as much attention. Thank you, Remy. You've also talked about members of the LGBTQ community have a higher rate of suicide attempts than the general population. You yourself said that you had tried to take your own life years ago.
I did.
What is your message about that?
You know, when it comes to the LGBT community, a lot of us suffer bullying, we suffer rejection, we suffer depression, anxiety. And so you have to remember that in the LGBT community, again, you're already feeling isolated from your family or groups of support. So where do you turn when you feel like this? And for me, it was important to make sure that I reached back out to LGBTQI youth. I worked in social services for many years, helping those youth to understand there is a place and there is support for them, that they don't have to live in this dark cloud every day, that they can get help.
But you thought taking your life was a viable alternative for you?
I did. You know, once you
got that dark.
Yeah, it did get that dark for me. You know, I sat there one day and thought, this is never going to get better. And I'm someone who was educated and understood mental health and could help other people, but couldn't help myself in the moment.
I want to get another question from the audience. Will was diagnosed with depression when he was a sophomore in high school. Will, what's your question?
I have found that regularly checking in with my family, like my mom here, as well as daily meditations and writing have been crucial to my mental health. What other daily routines have helped you?
Really great question. Thank you again for being open. One of the things that I help people to realize is that the same way you set goals for your life of the career I want, the family I want, also set daily emotional goals. So for me, I wake up in the morning and I say, today I plan on being happy. And if there's things that are happening in my life where I don't see myself being happy, I try to find support from other people, or I try to figure out what I can do within myself, what education I can get. And I think that's really important because when we talk about our emotions, we think of them as this ambiguous thing that's happening, or like if I want a good year, as if like every day something doesn't happen that changes that.
Quickly give us the Winnie the Pooh advice you love.
A great spiritual leader.
Yes, he is a great spiritual leader. I don't remember the quote exactly, but Winnie the Pooh. You do have the quote?
Oh yeah, no, I love this. Winnie the Pooh. Here's what he said: "You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think."
Yes.
All right, Karamo, thank you very much.
I like daily emotional goals.
Thank you.
I like that.
If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, help is available. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or contact the Crisis Text Line by texting TALK to 741-741.
And stay with us. We have much more ahead in our special Stop the Stigma. A growing number of adolescents are being diagnosed with mental health disorders. We'll look at the warning signs for parents and how young people can get help.
Plus, Emmy-winning broadcast journalist and our colleague Jane Pauley will share her experiences with bipolar disorder. And we'll talk to the mother of Lady Gaga. Cynthia Germanotta is her name. She started the Born This Way Foundation with her daughter, who she calls Stephanie, the rest of us call her Gaga, about the effects of mental illness on family and friends. But first, it is 8:11. Time to check your local weather.
Stop the stigma. Everyone deserves authentic welcome and a place to belong.
There's nothing completely wrong with you. You're completely fine. You're 100% awesome.
Welcome back to our CBS This Morning special. We're calling it, as you've heard, Stop the Stigma. It's a conversation about mental health. We want to make this a conversation, an ongoing conversation, if you will, to take away the shame and the blame. And that's something Emmy-winning broadcast journalist, and we're proud to say our colleague Jane Pauley, is very passionate about. After more than 30 years reporting the news, Pauley put a very public face on bipolar disorder. She revealed that she had taken a break from the spotlight and spent 3 weeks in a psychiatric clinic after being diagnosed back in 2001.
And now here's the big picture. An estimated 7 million Americans live with bipolar disorder. It's an illness that can cause dramatic mood swings from depressive lows to manic highs. And Jane is now an advocate for mental health, as well as the host of our beloved CBS Sunday Morning. Jane, thank you for being here.
Jane.
Now, back in 2001, when you were diagnosed, and I should point out that the majority of people who experience mental illness experience it and are diagnosed before the age of 24. In your case, you were
50.
A tad bit older, 50,
yeah.
3 kids, married.
Successful career.
Very busy career. What was it like to get the diagnosis?
Well, when I was 49, I was not bipolar. When I was 50, I was. I was switched, flipped. These are medical terms of art. Treated for hives, medication that wouldn't have been given to someone, at least without protection and careful observation, if a doctor had reason to think that there was family history or prior history with a mood disorder. I didn't have that.
You had no family history?
None. None that I know of, Gayle. But it unmasked what doctors then described as a genetic vulnerability to a mood disorder, and by that time, I was in pretty deep trouble.
And it's pretty interesting that in terms of experiencing stigma, one of the direct ways that you did is your own doctor who suggested maybe you don't want to tell the public about this whole thing, and he even gave you a little cover story.
I want to talk about stigma a little bit later when you tell me I can, but the only time in my life, and it's been, we're closing in on 20 years, that I experienced stigma was that day one, when I recognized that my doctor was giving me a cover story to tell my employers that I was being treated for a thyroid disorder, which was true, but I knew it was
more
not
than
the
that.
Whole truth.
Yeah.
And poor guy, I said, you know, I'm already writing a book, and the working title is Skywriting A Life Out of the Blue. This will fit right in. He went pale, but I knew then that with my reputation on television, I'm Midwestern. I am normal.
Because aren't you surprised this happened to you?
Yes, because no, my family had checked other boxes, but not that one.
But how did it manifest itself?
You wrote that the only way to redeem this horrible situation was to talk about it.
That's the way I think. And when I told this my doctor, he kind of turned pale. And I didn't put out a press release. Everybody deserves an opportunity to recover from whatever in private.
Yes. But Jane, I'm really trying to understand exactly how it manifested itself for you. We keep hearing you were diagnosed. So how did it change for you? What was the difference in your life?
Well, I changed. It didn't change for me. It actually got better. The side effect of the steroids for hives was depression, treated with antidepressant.
Were you sad? Were you angry? What was it?
Depression is depression. And then over time, it worked, and I got better and felt much better, and then felt really great, and then started having plans and other behaviors that my husband didn't know who I was. So that when I finally, when the doctor finally recognized, oh, I know what's going on here. This is bad. He called my husband and he said, your wife is very sick. And Gary was almost relieved. Because
to know that there was a diagnosis.
Well, maybe someone can help get my wife back.
You don't like the word stigma. We're calling this program Stop the Stigma.
You think that's the wrong word.
It's a little bit uncomfortable.
Yes, it is my personal advocacy. And I'm not an expert. I'm someone with bipolar. Don't take medical advice from me. But as a communicator, I know something. Words have power.
Yes.
And the word stigma
is its own stigma.
When cancer used to have a stigma, and then Betty Ford, and then now we wear pink ribbons and run for the cure. The yellow bracelets. Michael J. Fox fights Parkinson's with hope, with a positive message. So every time you say stigma, it is a reminder of for people like me that I'm fighting two wars.
Yeah.
It's not enough that I have a disorder that's pretty serious.
Yeah.
But I'm also fighting this front. So my goal is that we fight stigma, which is real, but we fight it with sophistication.
And we normalize this conversation.
And yes, it's a medical disorder.
And there is good news.
Okay.
We're now wearing ribbons, and if there's a 5K, I'm sure everyone in this room would run in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Jane Pauley, thank you very much for being here. We have a list of mental health resources and guides available on our website, cbsthismorning.com/mental health. And remember, if you or someone you know is ever experiencing a crisis, you can call 911.
Coming up, we talk to Cynthia Germanotta, Lady Gaga's mom, about her daughter's mental illness and the effects on the family. You're watching a very special edition of CBS This Morning.
Dr. Sue Varmer is here. Sue, you were here. We just heard from Jane Pauley and Karamo. Why is it important for celebrities and well-known people to speak out?
When celebrities speak out, two big things happen. Number one is we pay attention because we pay attention to people that we like and that we respect, and we get educated and informed. And number two, we realize that they're not two camps of people. They're not people with mental illness and then successful people. Successful people often live with mental illness. So this can very much be a part of our lives, and we can thrive and still be dealing with issues at the same time. They normalize and mainstream the conversation.
All right, Sue Varmer is going to stay with us. Ahead, we'll hear from an inspiring college student. Your local news is coming right up.
This is a special hour on CBS This Morning. I'm Tony Dokoupil. I've got Gayle King here. I've got Anthony Mason here. And we've got everyone else in this studio. Yes. We are joined by a live studio audience as we talk about a very important topic: mental illness, mental wellness, and mental health, and the journey between the three. Now get this, 1 in 6 young people experience a mental health disorder each year. And the suicide rate for adolescents aged 10 to 14 has nearly tripled in the last decade.
Think about that for a second. A little 10-year-old person up to 14, that's very scary stuff. Miana Bryant was diagnosed with depression back in college. She didn't know where to turn, so she created her own support group for college students to talk with each other about their mental health. She called it, I like this name, Miana, the mental elephant.
I was extremely scared to tell my family and to tell my parents that I had been diagnosed with depression and that I was asked to be put on medication. I didn't want people to lose respect for me or to look at me or treat me any different than how they normally would. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our meeting. So the mental elephant began when I first received my diagnosis. We're for everyone who is not okay but doesn't know how to get back to where they want to be.
The main thing I like about the mental elephant, it just makes you feel welcome. First and foremost, it just helps people talk.
We do group chats, we do empowerment events, we do study sessions.
People understand like counseling is okay.
I do talk about it to like my friends sometimes, but I'm still working on that.
I know that there are going to be days where you think your world is collapsing. There's going to be moments where you're not even sure how you're going to be able to get through the current 60 seconds. The only thing that you on this earth 100% have to do is breathe. Yes, okay, so Zaire, you.
Miana Bryant joins us now along with Dr. Ken Duckworth. He is the medical director at the National Alliance on Mental Illness, one of our consultants, and a specialist in child and adolescent psychiatry. Good morning to you both. Miana, that line you have at the end there is very powerful. Sometimes you just got to breathe. What did putting this group together, how did that help you in the end, all this group of friends?
It helped me by providing me with insight on how other people might have to go through life and the things that they experience in college, but it also provided me with support, and it allowed me to provide other people with support. And everyone knows that giving and providing other people with help is something that can even help you in the long run and allow you to feel great on the inside.
You're at East Carolina.
Yes,
this
sir.
group now is 300 strong?
Yes, sir. We have elephants all across the nation. We have everyone from Newtown, Maryland to Greenville, North Carolina.
Wow.
I like that you say we have elephants all over. I'm assuming you named it for the elephant in the room, which I think is very, very clever on your part.
Yes, ma'am.
But something that yes, ma'am. I can tell you're from the South. But Ken, I thought she said something very interesting, that she was reluctant to go to her parents and her friends because she didn't want them to lose respect for her.
Yes.
And that's exactly why we're having this conversation.
That's exactly why we're delighted at NAMI that you're doing this.
Yeah.
Let me start by saying Miana's generation is changing this game.
How so?
Openness, vulnerability, the willingness to share things. Miana is a beautiful example of how the next generation is.
You think we're at a tipping point, you said
think we are absolutely at a tipping point in our society. People are talking about it. People are seeking help. Hardly a day goes by so that somebody doesn't ask me to connect them with a clinician.
But suicidal thoughts are going up among young people.
Yes,
now,
it's
why do you think that
the
is?
worst of times,
Yes.
right? Even as this generation is paving the way for
Why is it going up, Ken?
Social media is an opportunity to feel humiliated every day.
Yes.
School shooting drills should not be part of 6th grade, but they are in virtually every school in America. They're designed to raise anxiety, and we're losing 5 Americans every hour to the opiate crisis.
Miana,
those kids know somebody?
Do you sense a change at all in your friends in terms of the reluctance in the past to talk about this?
Yes, I would definitely say that over the past at least 2 to 3 years, my friends and a lot of my family members have become a lot more open and honest and translucent when it comes to their mental health and allowing me to express myself and the things that I may go through.
So, Ken, how do you tell the difference, I mean, with all these people you're talking to on a daily basis and patients that you're seeing? When does a person know that they don't have run-of-the-mill blues? They have something else that's going to need a more serious look at or more serious help?
It's a great question, Tony, because all of us experience anxiety. All of us experience sadness. So it's easy to fall into the trap. Oh, you're just having sadness or anxiety. Snap out of it. That's the wrong way to think about it. When these symptoms impact your functioning, trouble going to work, your relationships, that's a sign, and they persist for weeks. That's a sign that you might want to get an independent mental health evaluation. Another piece is sleep. If you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's quite likely that you either have an anxiety or a depressive disorder. Not if you get up to do the Good Morning show.
Or you host the morning show.
You want to be up at 4 a.m., but
Ken, you're having hot flashes.
That's exactly.
I need to go lay on your couch.
Duly noted.
But let's not miss your point. Is there anything, Miana, that somebody could have said to you that would have made a difference when you were in the dark place?
I would definitely say that the biggest thing somebody could have said to me and that I would say to anyone now that may be in that dark place is to keep breathing, and to quote my favorite movie, Finding Nemo, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Definitely keep going, keep your head up, and try the best that you can no matter what's going on.
Winnie the Pooh and Finding Nemo having big roles this year.
Well said.
But one more thing for Ken. You said, we were talking yesterday, most people who've attempted suicide who survive regret that they tried it. They regret that they tried it.
Many people who've said during an impulsive moment of desperation, they wish they had ended it all. And then, of course, upon reflection, they know that they can get help.
Yes, it can and does get better. Thank you both. Thank you both.
Thank you for having me.
Ahead, Lady Gaga's mother will join us with her daughter's public advocacy and the impact of mental illness on family and friends. But first, a check of your local weather.
And we got to take care of each other. So if you see somebody that's hurting, don't look away. And if you're hurting, even though it might be hard, try to find that bravery within yourself to dive deep and go tell somebody and take them up in your head with you. I love you. Thank you so much to the Grammys. Thank you.
That's Lady Gaga, of course, addressing the importance of reaching out for help at the Grammy Awards. The superstar has spoken openly about dealing with mental illness, including depression, anxiety, and PTSD.
Her mother, Cynthia Germanotta, who looks just like her, rather Gaga looks like her mom, joins us now to talk about the impact of mental illness on family and friends. Germanotta teamed up with her daughter, who she calls Stephanie, that's her name, also known as Lady Gaga to the rest of us, to create the Born This Way Foundation. It works to educate people about mental and emotional wellness. Cynthia Germanotta, thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
We're very glad
Thank
you're
you for
here.
having me.
Because
I'm so inspired by you focusing on this.
Oh,
Thank you.
We're delighted to do this. You know, Gaga has talked very openly about it, and you said, you know, when she was a kid, you always knew she was unique. When did it go from unique to Houston, we have a problem at your house?
Well, yeah. Well, first, you know, we all have mental health, but I believe that we, as both individuals and society, we don't treat it the same way that we treat physical health.
Yes.
So certainly when it happened in our house, I didn't know what to look for. As a parent, I wasn't prepared to really address this. Stephanie was very unique, and that wasn't always appreciated by her peers. And as a result, she went through a lot of difficult times, humiliated, taunted, isolated. When you're a young woman, this really severely impacts you. And it was in middle school when I saw that turn happen. You know, when she went from a very happy and aspirational young girl to somebody that started to question her self-worth, to have doubts about herself, and that is when we actually saw the turn. What I didn't realize, because I wasn't prepared, is how to really deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, when I was growing up, times were different. The way that we would deal with things is what I learned, and that's what I resorted to. You know, I relied on...
Get a grip?
I relied on getting a grip. I relied on the generational grit of just sucking it up and getting on with it.
But even if you do learn to listen, sometimes it's still very hard, and I've been in this situation, to know what to do.
It's very hard to know what to do. And then the impact on families, what I didn't realize is the profound impact that it can have. It basically turns the focus of everything onto that one individual. And families feel conflicted about it. They don't really understand it. It causes conflict and a lot of stress within the families. It can also cause feelings, for me personally, feelings of guilt, of helplessness, not knowing how to help my daughter. So what I really learned is that no family is immune from this, and we should all really learn, you know, where we would go and who we would turn to if something like this happened in our families.
Now that you've been through it, you've come out the other side, what advice or recommendation do you have to other people who right now may have a family member going through this very thing?
Well, one of the most difficult things for me as a parent was understanding what was normal and what was not normal. When you look at young children in particular. You know, what is normal adolescent development and then a real issue. And that for me was not knowing how to distinguish between certain both emotional and behavioral changes. You know, your emotions, there's very noticeable changes that happen. Feelings of sadness, feelings of feeling selfless and worthless. In terms of behavior, you might be more angry, crying, turning to substance abuse.
What do you recommend?
What's the most important thing a parent can do?
Well, the most important thing that they can do is really listen and understand. What I learned from my daughter is to listen and validate her feelings. I think as parents, our natural instinct is to go into problem-solving mode.
So relatable, yes.
When in fact, you know, they really just want us to take them seriously and understand what they're saying.
And sometimes they don't often want to talk to their parents or talk to their peers. Is it important to find somebody that they can talk to?
Absolutely.
They're not talking to you.
We've learned from our research that young people often don't turn to their parents, because they feel...
We get on their nerves.
There's fear of being judged. Also, we as parents, we don't talk about our own struggles. I encourage parents to be vulnerable. Talk about your current or past struggles. So it really models healthy conversations and good behavior.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is to really talk to them. And it's certainly okay to not be okay and start to have these conversations.
Cynthia Germanotta, thank you so much for coming in and
talking to us. Thank you so much for having me.
We applaud you, sir.
Ahead, we'll talk to our panel of medical experts about finding the right help for you or your loved one. And remember, if you or someone you know is ever experiencing a crisis, you can call 911. You are watching a special edition of CBS This Morning. We'll be right back. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Gayle, thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to our CBS This Morning special. Mental health disorders are treatable, but last year, nearly 57% of those who needed treatment did not get it.
We welcome back psychiatrist Dr. Ken Duckworth and Dr. Sue Varma, along with our own chief medical correspondent, Dr. John LaPook. Good morning, John.
Morning, John LaPook.
John, you're a primary care physician, and you say primary care doctors should be the first line of defense in mental health.
Yeah, and I think part of it is realizing that assessing for mental health problems, that's in our lane. Just as it's assessing for high blood pressure or high cholesterol, anything else is in our lane. That means talking to people about their mood, about their possible mental health problems, but also looking for clues. So Ken mentioned earlier, any problems with sleep? Is the person complaining of feeling jittery or maybe just a little bit of tired? And then the things that are more subtle. So body language, right? And what's really important in assessing body language is actually looking at the patient. So turn away from that computer, look at the person, look them in the eye, and they'll feel safe. And people want to feel seen.
People want to connect. Absolutely. And we know talk therapy is so vital, but Dr. Varma, medication is also out there. It's also an option. What should people know about that path?
Medication is such an important part and can be an extremely effective tool as part of a comprehensive treatment plan. We need to have realistic expectations. We need to know going in that medication takes time to work. If we're talking about an antidepressant, it may take 6 to 8 weeks. It often has side effects, dry mouth, constipation, headaches. Most of those side effects dissipate. Have a scheduled follow-up appointment if it is your primary care doctor that's treating you to specifically discuss this. A lot of times people get lost to follow up. They get off their medication because of the side effects. And also recognize that medication isn't going to solve all your problems. If this issue is due to a loss, a depression, due to a family member getting lost or death, that we need to grieve those losses and not throw medication at the person.
All right, let's go to Stuart in the audience. He has lived with anxiety for 4 decades and more recently depression. You have a question for Dr. Duckworth.
Thank you. My question is around, my family knew I was depressed, but they didn't know how severe it had become. If somebody isn't forthcoming to a psychiatrist or to their family, how can you help them?
Stuart, that's a great question because shame is a core human emotion, and if you're not feeling at your best, functioning at your best, there's a natural reticence to not share a vulnerability. One strategy is if you happen to have a family history of mental health, have that discussion before somebody develops a problem. Right? That's one idea. The other idea is just to notice the person and say, you know, is there anything that you want to chat with me about? I noticed that you are depressed. I may not have a full understanding of what you're going through, but I'm open to listening to you.
Very quickly, when do you know when to go to a therapist?
When your functioning or safety is in the orbit of your experience.
And Dr. Duckworth, I think it's important to tell people that they can call their insurance company. They have an obligation to help you find a therapist. It's really important. You can get assistance in paying for all this.
The best kept secret in American mental health is your health plan wants to find you a therapist if you can't find one.
A secret no more.
A secret no more. Your primary care doctor is another route. They often are connected.
Yeah, there's a number on the back of your insurance card. Thank you very much, Dr. Sue Varma, Ken Duckworth, and of course, John LaPook. We'll see you at home later on. Thank you very much. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis, help is available. That's what we've been talking about this last hour.
Yeah, and we are committed to continuing our coverage of this important issue all across CBS News platforms.
Thank you to our studio audience and to our guests.
If you want to send a message, you're not alone. We'll see you tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
Thank you, everybody.
Take it easy. That goes so